but of course we're not. So I'll answer the questions from last night first, and then I'll do chapters 3 and 4. I have to read them again before I come on because, of course, I'd just waffle on forever telling the story, and I've tried to split it into the 5 sections, which is hard. So the first question from last night was, what made me realise something was wrong when I was pregnant, and how did it affect me mentally? And that was Sue, Vicky's mum. I didn't really realise anything, Sue, to be fair, other than a water infection and a bit of a pain in my side. I didn't think, I would never have dreamed that they were going to come back and say I had cancer. I just thought it was baby related. Um, so I guess when they told me, I was just more shocked than anything. But anyone who knows me knows that I'm very stubborn. Um, so from the get go, I was adamant that it wasn't going to get me because I had the kids and John, and at the time we had one dog. Now we've got 2 dogs. Um, so I was just, it just made me more determined to find out about it and do whatever I could, um, to make sure that I was still around to see the kids grow up. Of course, that can't always be the case. I've got a friend right now who was diagnosed with bowel cancer last year, um, and it had shrunk earlier this year, so that was great. And then she's been back a few weeks ago, and now they've said there's nothing they can do for her. It's spread to her liver, and it's terminal, and she might have 6 months. Maybe she might make it till the summer. So you just don't know. But having a positive attitude, I guess, is the thing that I would say to anybody, that they need to stay mentally strong and as positive as they can be. And then I had a question from Shauna. Who was the hardest person to tell and why? So, as most people know who know me, I don't speak to my parents, and I haven't spoke to my parents for a very long time. So I didn't have that to deal with. I didn't tell them at all. But my sister, I'm very close with, and it was probably the hardest telling her. She's 10 years older than me, and we've always been close. But I guess my diagnosis made us closer because her and her husband at the time, um, they were amazing. They did so much for us when I was diagnosed and afterwards. And they live in Liverpool. We lived in Oldham at the time, and they'd come every time we needed them. They'd come, um, to help with the kids. So it's probably hardest telling her because I knew before I told her, obviously, she'd be devastated, but I just wanted people to stay as positive as they could, and not get upset. And cancer's just a word, I guess. Um, and it's more common now than it ever has been. So they're the only 2 questions I had. If anybody has got another question, just stick it in the comments and I will answer it as I go. I'll go on to chapters 3 and 4, and I've made notes. This is how bad it is because I forget what's in each chapter. But chapter 3 starts off with, I used to love having a bath when I was pregnant. You've got this, huge bump, and the baby's moving around, and I used to sit and chat to the baby. And I just remember sitting in the bath one night, and she was moving around, and it's the only time I can ever remember crying, and it got to me because I just thought, why me? I was only 33 years old, um, bringing a new life into the world, and what? It's a good a question as any. Why me? Obviously, nobody can ever answer that question because cancer just it isn't selective about who gets it and who doesn't. When I've been for scans at the hospital and things before, you see children there linked up to drips and things, and that's one thing I was grateful for. It wasn't any of my kids. because I think if it had been one of my kids, I don't know whether I would have been as mentally strong as I stayed for myself, because I had them to focus on. Um, the rest of the pregnancy after the diagnosis, I guess, went okay. Apart from me dragging me leg round because of me hip displacement, but apart from that, I was fine. I ate well. My checkups all went okay. My blood pressure stayed okay. Um, there was It was uneventful, I guess. But what more eventful can it be other than once you've been diagnosed? There's nothing to say really. Um, we didn't. We told some people, but we didn't tell Luke because he was only 11 at the time, and we just thought, it is the big C, and we didn't think at 11 that he would cope with it very well. Um, so when we were around him, we never really spoke about it. Um, we tried to keep it as hush hush as we could, because there'd have been a lot of questions that he asked, I guess, that he would have asked, that I guess we probably wouldn't have been able to answer at that time, because we didn't really know ourselves what was coming. Um, so for everybody knew that Luke didn't know. So I guess it was stolen conversations when he wasn't around, or when we thought he wasn't able to hear. Um, and I did everything that they told me not to do, and looked at Dr. Google. Um, and because it's so rare, it was hard to find any information really, because there's only Christie's and then Basingstoke that deal with that type of cancer. But I did find a forum that I joined, um, and probably shouldn't have joined, because I just became obsessed with it. I'd be on it all the time to see what people were saying about what had happened to them, or um, whether it was good or bad. Um, and I got to the point where just one day somebody had put on that they'd been clear for 7 years and it had come back. And I just thought, oh, I can't do this anymore. So I had to take myself off it, because at that time I needed to focus on the fact that I'd been diagnosed and I didn't really know what was going to happen. Um, so to know that potentially in 7 years, even if they did do surgery and got rid of it, that it could potentially come back, I just didn't think it was a good thing. So I came off the forum, um, for my own mental health, I guess, just so that I could stay as positive as I could. Um, and then no baby on due date. And so I went to the hospital, as you do. They gave me a date to go and be induced of the 17th, which was obviously, they gave you 2 weeks at the time, and I don't think they do anymore. But they gave me this two weeks, take me in on the Tuesday and induce me, and I didn't want that, because I'd heard terrible stories about being induced, and those 2 weeks I was in hospital, um, before my diagnosis. There was a woman in there who was induced, and she was induced, and it was 3 days later before she went into labour. So no, that wasn't for me. So I tried everything: the hot curry, the castor oil, anything that I could do, the sex, anything. I was trying anything to get that baby out, but she's quite stubborn, and I think she gets that from me. Um, so that date was coming closer and closer and closer, and John was due to pick up his new car. So a friend of ours, Mark, had said that he'd drive him. I think it was Nottingham they were going. He was going to take him early on the Saturday morning before um, I was due to go in and be induced. Friday night, Luke went to stay at John's mum's. Pauline was having him overnight. Um, and we were chilled. Shopping was due the next day. John was going off to get his car, all excited. So we goes to bed on the Friday. Everything was fine. um I think it was about 4 o'clock in the morning. I got up for a wee, which is not unusual. I still do it now. And my waters broke, and I thought, oh my God, he's going to kill me, because he was going to pick his car up. So I tapped him and I said, my waters have just broke, but don't get up. I'm just going to go and have a bath and I'll see how I go. So it got to like 6 o'clock and I was like, yeah, I think it's going to happen. It's going to happen soon. So we ended up ringing Mark and saying we can't go for my car. Lindsay's gone into labour. So we arrived at the hospital. It was about 8 o'clock in the morning.